some teachers asked me about students are asking for having a beautiful voice right away. So do you feel particularly harder to deal with that matter in professional singers or like beginning singers or amateurs?
I would say it's less in professional singers. I think professional singers, from my perspective, tend to have a greater self-awareness of their voice,
Hmm.
and also at the same time a very clear idea of what they want to sound like.
Okay.
And so we can explore extreme ranges of sound, and allow them as well to guide back to how they want it to be overall, like the finished product.
Hmm.
So working with somebody who's quite self-aware about their voice, I think makes this process quite easy. I tend to find it is more with people who don't necessarily identify with the label of singer, which would be like our beginners, and maybe people who are still kind of a bit further into the journey but trying to explore different aspects of their voice. But it can come up with anyone
Okay.
really at any time. I don't think it's particularly specific to one kind of type of singer. I think it does rear its head
Okay.
in everyone.
Yeah. And okay. So what I want to ask you as a second thing for you to give your opinion, finding then the right challenge for the singer or for the voice, since you just broke the barrier of this is ugly, this is beautiful, or we're just dealing with sounds for looking for certain coordination, let's say. um,
Mhm.
then how to find the right challenge in your opinion?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's really good. The right challenge for somebody. So, if somebody is afraid of making noise, we have to get them to make noise.
Hmm.
And that fear of making noise is a really big thing, I think. Sometimes people haven't given themselves permission to make a lot of noise for a variety of different reasons. So we have to kind of challenge that fear of making noise. Um, and the best way for me to try and engage in that is usually through primal sounds, which we're going to access via role play
Hmm.
more often than
Hmm.
not. But this isn't something I think you can just kind of whip out in the first lesson. There has to be an element of trust in the room. They have to feel safe in the room. And this can be exploring the primal sounds that we use every day subconsciously without even realizing it. So everything from like a cry or a whinge or a sob to a laugh to calling up the stairs,
Hmm.
hailing a taxi. These kinds of things. How do we utilize our voice? How you talk to the dog,
Hmm.
right? It's like this wonderful thing that I like about the perception of chest voice, let's say for the moment, is that chest voice can often present as like a binary option. It's either kind of chest voice or it's not present,
Hmm.
right? And chest voice is just as nuanced as any other part of the voice. And so looking at how people speak to infants, how they speak to their pets, is this really interesting coordination of chest voice, which I call like a lullaby
Hmm.
voice. So we tend to go very, very soft and we talk like this,
Hmm.
and it's all utilizing the chest. So it's kind of how do we get people to suddenly think about situations in which they use their voices in different ways, and letting the student kind of guide that process. But yeah, that's the challenge, I think. And so I'm very fond of kind of sounds like meow, sounds like quack,
Hmm.
just because like meow is this amazing kind of triphthong that just allows us to explore almost a sensation of treble and bass to get almost like an EQ
Hmm.
of a sound,
Hmm.
and quack is great for getting the tongue really high and back to get a lot of supraglottal resistance into the voice and to access that kind of singer's formant area around the soft palate to get a bit of ring into the sound. So, but if a singing teacher suddenly says to you in the very first lesson, right, we're going to quack and be as much like a duck as we can, you may lose them,
Yeah.
right? So you've got to have that element of trust, I think, established first and foremost, and then you will find the right challenge together,
Okay.
essentially, But it is based on that kind of working relationship that has to be there. So there has to be trust for that to happen.
And being even more specific, for example, if a singer is, having trouble in the first bridge, let's say, or second bridge, and then, the voice is just getting there, like touching the first bridge, let's say. And how would you kind of select repertoire or a specific song for the singer to, like, okay, let's challenge that voice since it's getting there. So it's staying there forever, it's touching there. How do you change keys? How do you choose the right notes, or how long the voice will be able to stay there? How do you proceed?
Gosh, again, it's really quite individualistic, but I always try to work with singers on repertoire that they like.
Okay.
I think we have more progress in songs that they like. So we have to have that kind of exploration first. I will change keys. I think, if you're using the piano like I do, I have that, I think the Ultimate Guitar app on my phone, which is a godsend, and you can just change the key straight away, and I can just bash the chords out and we can explore changing the key. My favourite tool, being perfectly honest, is to use musical theatre if the student is agreeable to that. I tend to find that there is a lot of pop which does have that wide tessitura, but there's a lot of pop which doesn't. And I think with musical theatre, I find we tend to get a greater tessitura, so there's greater challenges for the singer. We have to deal with the first bridge. For many female singers, they have to deal with the second bridge. So I'd use repertoire like that. And, I'm not afraid of taking a voice to the max, to the outer edges. So if I think someone needs to pull their chest voice to experience what that's like, then we will pull the chest voice. Because fixing the chest voice or fixing a pull in the chest voice, that's something I can do, right? So I think a phrase I use a lot with my students is dare to dare. So it's, yes, I can guide the voice. We can coordinate and balance the voice. We can change the vowels. We can do lots of really great pedagogical stuff. But unless that intention is there, then we're always going to struggle, right? So they have to dare to dare. It's like, if you want that C5, female singer sounding like chest voice, then you've got to be able to go there. And even if that first attempt or that second, third, fourth attempt sounds like it's yelly or a bit shouty or a bit whatever, does not matter. We've got to get there. And then we can make all the changes that we need to make, basically. So it just depends on the person. It really does, I think.
So would you say, for example, I use with my students too, like, first for us to deal or to polish the note, we have to have it. So
yeah, 100%.
Basically that.
Yeah.
Great. So
yeah.
And then, big one for you. Sorry for that, because you'll see. No, it's easy, but it's a lot to discuss about, which is cause and effect. So we're now talking about experiencing something, kind of creating a sensation, but then when we face trouble, how do you, in simple terms or basics, understand that that's a symptom and not the cause, or the cause and not the symptom?
Yeah, this is a big question, I think, and this is an evolving question all the time, really, as to what we identify as being the root causes of an issue and what are merely symptoms that present themselves.
Yeah.
And for me, I think it's fair to say the vast majority of issues are going to occur in the chest voice.
Okay.
Right. And so we really do have to take a really good look in the chest voice, and primarily, first and foremost, looking at the onset of sound into the chest voice, right? So looking at, whether this is too light or whether this is forced, right? These kind of two polar opposites there. Whether there's a chest voice at all, which is another issue, right? And then how to find balance in a chest voice. And as we know, there is no internationally universal scale of what balance is in a chest voice. So we kind of have to kind of work in with the students again, what feels good, what feels balanced, right? And then it's how to take that coordination up through, say, first transition, first bridge, up through to second, and looking out for compensations that come along the way. So sometimes we've got symptoms, but sometimes we've got compensations as well. So it's trying to kind of separate these things out. Is what I'm hearing a symptom because of a root cause that's down in the chest voice, for example? Or does this singer actually know quite a bit and has developed a set of compensations that they're using to actually get through areas of their voice? But what is really quite difficult, but what is quite fascinating at the same time with the kind of research that's being done in neurology and the voice at the moment, is looking at the psychology behind the voice. I mean, I mentioned before a person who doesn't identify as a singer. And I think that's the one thing I can't give to somebody. I can't give a singer that identification. And I've over the years, I've come across people who've got beautiful voices but don't identify as being a singer, and people who don't have the best voices but fully identify with being a singer. Right. So I think that identification is really crucial. And then anything else that goes along with it, so self-belief systems, negative perceptions of depth, negative perceptions of height, permission to make noise, all these different kinds of things go into this. So yeah, we can have like a mechanical cause to something, but that mechanical cause just doesn't just suddenly appear one day. There's something driving that mechanical cause, and that's probably rooted in the psychology of the singer themselves. So without having done any kind of therapeutic training whatsoever, this is where we find ourselves in that kind of pseudo therapy environment where we're trying to find out why a person is afraid of making noise without being qualified in any way to therapize this situation. That's quite tricky, but I think it's a necessary part. And so I think, as singing teachers, we have to have our empathy turned up quite high to try and figure out what's actually going on here. So you've got your mechanical causes. Your mechanical causes are definitely going to be creating acoustic compensations or mechanical compensations, which will present themselves or not with acoustic symptoms, mechanical symptoms, depending on where we are in the range. But never forgetting that underpinning all of that is this psychological view of the voice as well. And that needs to be addressed just as much.
Super. So thank you very much, Ian, for your time.
You're welcome.
Amazing. And then for the ones looking for getting a certification, getting a training on how to teach voice, how do they get it?
Well, I'm going to recommend Modern Vocal Training and our Level 1 program because it's really comprehensive and we deal with these topics. So, yeah.
And for you listening or watching on YouTube, there will be a link in the description below. And also you can put your, any questions that helps us to create the show here for you to be a better teacher, to understand, to get more information on for your lessons to be better. So hope to see you again, guys. Thank you, Ian, for your time.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.